Today's interview it highlights an ordinary citizen who uncovered an extraordinary truth. And it's a story of courage, determination, and grassroots mobilization that rallied more than 25,000 people. Sandy Rosenthal, she changed the national conversation about the deadly flooding in New Orleans during Hurricane Katrina, proving that one person can make a powerful difference. Well, she might be an ordinary woman, everyday woman with two small dogs. I love this, Twinkie and Cupcake. But her passion for justice shows what's possible when a David decides to stand up to the Goliaths. And this is especially important at the halftime of life, mid-career, because many people are looking for what's next, what to do. And having a purpose and a mission like Sandy's really makes all the difference, not only for a person individually, but for our society. So stay tuned. Power of After is for you at mid-career, halftime of life, helping you maximize your skills, resources, and experience. We have courses, products, and help to make this stage of your life your best and most purposeful ever. Don't miss a single article, free download, or podcast. Get all the latest at goalsforyourlife.com/newsletter. Now, let's dive into today's episode. Well, I'm so excited to have Sandy here today, Sandy Rosenthal. And you have such a mission, what you've done, and it's so admirable and very brave. I'd like to, I've done a little bit of introduction, but I like my guests to introduce themselves with a little bit of their background. And you had shared you don't have any special background for what you decided to do. So, but what is your background besides having those two darling little dogs, Twinkie and Cupcake, and you have grandchildren? So give us just a brief background.
Well, that's a really fair question, especially since you don't need special training to set out what you want to do.
Wow.
All you need to do is decide you want to do it. But as far as background, I was the mom of three children. My youngest was still living in the house. He was just 15 years old. Married at that time, since I was 21 years old. And
Wow.
my first serious boyfriend I met when I was 19. And I had a background in marketing with a specialty in copywriting, which did help me with my work. My second stage, second half of my life work, the copywriting, very, very good skill to have. And the only other thing I could think to mention is that in addition to a full-time job, I was always very physically active. Either, when I was younger, it was ballet, and then I got into tennis, and then I got into dancing, Cajun dancing and Zydeco dancing. So I always kept physically busy.
Cool. That's that was such a kind of an eye-opening, because I'm thinking you must have engineering background, but really, it was kind of based on some of your personal experiences from what you, and we're going to really talk about some of the nitty-gritty of what you've done in this. But how did your personal experiences during Katrina, the Hurricane Katrina? I remember just the devastation. I am on the West Coast, so of course we get our share of earthquakes and other things. But I mean, the devastation that happened there, how did that shape what you ended up doing?
Well, and by the way, it's not surprising that you thought I had engineering background. That's I'm kind of impressed by that. Make me feel good because I learned a lot on the job.
Okay.
But as for how this event could cause me to take such a huge change in my life, one needs to keep in mind that the same number of people died approximately during the levee breaches of Katrina as in 9/11 and the Titanic. all three of those disasters actually shaped society and shaped laws and changed laws and really changed the world that we live in. All three of those disasters. So and they technically they were all catastrophes, much worse than disasters in terms of lives lost. Billions upon billions of dollars expense to us all, and yeah, so they were that. So that is a big reason that my life and the life of about 1 million other people in this region changed.
Wow. So now, did you, I'm sure, were you affected a lot by that flooding, and or were you on the outskirts, or what did you see, or some of your friends? How did that impact you?
I live in the city of New Orleans. I live a half a block off of the famous St. Charles Avenue streetcar. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if for those of you with very good ears could hear it in the background passing my house. I don't even hear it anymore. I've lived in the same house 40 years. So I live in the city of New Orleans, but I was fortunate. I happen to live right next to the Mississippi River. The Mississippi has something called it's the natural high ground. It's a natural levee formed over thousands and thousands of years of the Mississippi overflowing its banks, which is natural.
Mm-hmm.
And so I didn't even know that I lived on that, what we call the sliver by the river. So I did not flood, not so much as an inch in my house. However, every 80% of New Orleans flooded. And if you didn't flood, your business might have flooded, or your job where you work might have flooded.
Wow.
So you didn't have to flood personally in your own home to be affected. Also, don't forget, if you flooded, probably so did your sister, your mother, your aunts, your
Oh,
uncles, your
yes.
grandparents. I mean, there's no place you could go
Yeah.
to live while you're
Wow.
rebuilding. So this was a bona fide catastrophe.
It just gave me chills about just, how impactful that was. So, what was the igniting moment that you decided just to become this community mobilizer? I mean, and this is, you are fighting, apparently. I mean, I don't know a lot about the Army Corps of Engineers, but it just sounds very, very impressive. So, what, what was that spark that you said that you got into you that you said, okay, I'm ready to fight?
There was a definite moment.
Mm.
It occurred at the end of October, so we're talking about 6 weeks after the flooding. And I was speaking to a resident from the town of Alexandria. It's a city in the middle of Louisiana, and I was talking to him about the flooding of New Orleans and how it was avoidable, how it shouldn't have happened, and had those levees been properly constructed, that we would all be fine.
Yeah.
And this was the mistakes of the Army Corps of Engineers. Well, this gentleman
Mhm.
told me, "Oh, no, no, very mean. Oh, no, no, the levees were fine. Katrina was a huge storm, and you people shouldn't have been living there in the first place, and
Oh my gosh.
you don't deserve any help."
Wow.
Hmm.
Oh, that would have,
So
yeah, that would have sparked something in me.
naturally, I was shocked by that, and the details are in my book, but the
Mm-hmm.
bottom line was that night, I
Mm-hmm.
told my husband, I said, "I have got to get the word out. I've got to do something. I've got to make sure that people understand what really happened to us, because, I mean, all of the survivors deserve for people to know the truth."
Yeah. And how did you get to know the truth actually? Because it wasn't it just like starting to be covered up. I mean, we've got so much what's called now. I mean, we don't know what to believe with the press. Everything's like, oh, misinformation, or it's racist, or it's this, or it's that, or it's, this. I mean, how did you even find out like what the problem really, really was? I mean, could you go into a dam and see a crack? I mean, there's everything's gone. What do you do?
Well, the first thing, my advice in a general sense, and then we'll
Hmm.
get to how I figured out the levees. But in a general sense, always beware when you hear of catastrophe being blamed on the wind or the
Oh, yes.
water.
Okay.
and look behind that. And I'll speak to this poor group of campers at their summer camp in Texas this past
Yes.
summer,
Yeah.
asleep in their bunks for the
Mm-hmm.
night at their camp.
Mm-hmm.
And the flooding was blamed on the wind and the water.
Mm-hmm.
Look behind those words because human beings are hiding behind those words. So that is my advice in a general sense. In a specific sense, if you say to me, Sandy, how did you figure it out? No special training. You're not a civil engineer. No political experience. How did I figure it out? Well, I used a little trick that a lot of people don't think of. I can read.
Oh, wow.
I can read. It blows people's minds, actually. The people that think you're not going to read when they turns up, you can actually read reports,
Mm-hmm.
read executive summaries. So I figured it out by reading, and it didn't take me long to get my little hands on a report. Sounds all very dry and boring. The Government Accountability Report. They did a hearing. Let's call it
Mm-hmm.
a Katrina hearing, and this was just 4 weeks after the flooding, and it said in there very clearly that the levees of New Orleans are built by the federal government, designed and built by the federal government, and they're maintained by the locals.
Mm-hmm.
And it
Ah.
seems to me, well, if these levees broke,
Mm-hmm.
and it was my understanding they broke, below design specs. In other words, they
Mm-hmm.
broke when they should have held. That's not our
Yes.
fault. That's
Yeah.
that's not our fault. And like you wouldn't blame a janitor if a brand new building fell to the ground.
Right.
So, the moment I got my hands on that report, GAO, September 28th, 2005, I started asking questions and I
Hmm.
got pushback, immediate, mean pushback. And that's
Wow.
what told me I must be right.
Mm-hmm.
Why would anyone expend their precious energy telling me very loudly and meanly that I'm wrong
Yeah.
if unless I was on the right track, unless they were trying to protect someone or protect
Mm-hmm.
something?
Mm-hmm. Oh, interesting. Wow. Well, that took some guts. And I liked kind of connecting this. I read because you're a copywriter. Of course you read. You've got to, if you're a writer, you read and read and read. That's exactly it happens. I mean, I've been a composer as well. You read. You always do that when you write lyrics. You write books. You read. You constantly. So that is probably part of the role of education. Or what is this role of education really in preventing future disasters? Because, we can read, but what do we believe and how do we find that information? And how do we educate ourselves as a community and as individuals who are in these communities? What is your advice for that?
Sure, that's a really great question because it can be kind of paralyzing. Imagine you're in my shoes. You've got the great and powerful Army Corps of Engineers is in charge with their infinitely deep pockets of money, and that can be really daunting.
Mm-hmm.
How am I going to get the word out? Well,
Mm-hmm.
here's the thing: you don't have to know the answers. Okay, you just need to ask the questions and keep asking those questions
Mm-hmm.
until you get your answer. And if
Mhm.
what the powers that be that trying to keep that information from you they're gonna stall.
Mm.
They're gonna
Mhm.
stall. You just keep
Mhm.
at it and keep at it and keep asking to get the answers, and then the more questions you ask, the more information you get, and then the things will get clearer and clearer and clearer as you move forward. It's really critical that you understand whatever issue it is that you're trying to get out there. You need to understand as much of it as humanly possible. But don't worry if you don't know anything. Don't worry if you don't know everything on the
Everything,
first day.
yes. Well,
On the
yeah.
first day. Don't worry
But
about that. It'll come. And then also when you get up on your soapbox, other people will come to help you, with the information that they may have because of their expertise, whether they're an engineer in
Mhm.
what's happened with me. The moment I opened up my mouth, an engineer came to my rescue and said, "You need some help." Uh,
Wow, that's
and
fun.
and we communicated today, as a matter of fact, 20 years later. His
Wow.
name is H.J. Bosworth. He's a civil engineer. And then I had other people, an attorney, offer his services pro bono,
Mm.
not in case I might be sued. Which, by the way, I was actually threatened with lawsuit
Right, I'm sure.
in this, which is a really interesting story. But no, he was there to help me with things like if I needed. Remember, I said you need to ask questions. I
Yes.
took I took full advantage of the Freedom of Information Act.
Wow.
Any citizen in this country can ask for data from the federal government, and the federal government has to respond, has to acknowledge you within 3 weeks, and has to supply the answer in six. And
Wow.
it hasn't been pulled off the books yet. It's still there. So we should be utilizing that every day. So yeah, in the beginning, keep in mind, you don't have to know everything from day one.
Right, right. Very, very interesting. And also just do how you started building a team um, with people around you, just because you had, you were igniting it a bit and just kept asking questions. Asking questions is so very important because people like to talk about themselves. They like to talk about all of their opinions. That's all they like to talk about. And isn't it refreshing if you meet somebody new and they're all of a sudden they're asking about you? It's like, oh, really? And all of a sudden you think, oh, this is the nicest person because it wasn't all about them. I've worked in the arts a lot, so it's a lot about, all about them. So I think that's really, really important, especially in such a strong mission of asking questions. Did your questions grow as you went along? I'm sure they did. The more you found out, did you write them down? How did you formulate? Because you ended up starting this nonprofit. Okay. So you got to have some sort of substance there. Did you write things as you went and then you were able to ask more questions? What's the journey like on that?
Sure. And I'm going to answer that. That could
Yeah.
be answered with two things. And the first is going to be how I got the whole thing started from nothing, because I really
Okay.
did start a 25,000 member organization from scratch.
Yeah.
Nobody came to me with their mailing lists
Yeah.
that I
Right.
could add to mine. No, I
Mhm.
created mine from
Mhm.
scratch, and then down the line, I want to talk to you about that, those questions. But
Yes.
to start with, how did it all begin?
Mhm.
My son, after he heard me, naturally, I was talking about this at dinner. My 15-year-old said to me, "Mom, if you will, if you will come up with a mission statement, I'll
Mhm.
do a website for you." Keep in mind, he's 15 years old, and this is
Wow.
2005. So this is 20 years ago. But
Yeah.
kids know everything. They
Hmm.
did then, and they still do. So he said he would create a website, and he did, and we launched it on December 3rd, 2005. Okay.
Okay.
And so this is just weeks after the flooding. And so I thought, okay, great, here we are. We've got a website and a mission, but we need more. We need members. We
Hmm.
need people. We need
Hmm.
a mailing a database.
Hmm.
So I thought, now how are we going to do that? I said, oh, I have an idea. Let's put a petition on our website to President Bush,
Okay.
George W. Bush, asking him to keep his promise to build back our levees bigger and stronger.
Hmm.
So we created this petition,
Hmm.
and all people had to do was put in their name and their email address.
Hmm.
And so I used the old-fashioned way, using email. We sent
Hmm.
this a link to the website to our family and friends,
Hmm.
and said, "Please add your name to it and forward it." And overnight, we had 200 names.
Wow.
Keep in mind, this is 20 years ago.
Ah,
Where I mean, that would be impressive even today, in
right,
today's
right,
social media world. We didn't have
right,
YouTube, we didn't
right,
have Twitter, we didn't
right.
have Facebook,
Right.
and we did, but they were fledgling. Uh,
Yes, yes.
Now even my grandmother has a Facebook page.
Yeah.
So, and I'm not that young. So, so 200 members overnight, and that's what put us on the map. It continued to grow, and just a year and a half, it got up to 25,000.
Wow.
nationwide. But that's how it all started. And as for the questions and asking questions,
Mhm.
one of the best place to grow and learn is from criticism. People who
Ah.
criticize you unwittingly, unknowingly, unintentionally provide you with information that you might not have known already. That
Ah.
and it can I mean, one of the greatest blows on the head, insights, eureka moments in my work with levee.org is somebody thought he was, like, throwing a pie in my face and tripping me up, when actually he showed me the answer that I've been looking for. So and it b and it was free, didn't cost me a dime. That's another thing. Criticism, people will, by their criticism, make you stronger and better because it
Mhm.
it 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 will make you, like, if there were any little, loose ends or data that wasn't really well backed up, if they point it out, you go, "Oh, you got a point. Thank you for telling me that," and they'll make you better. The
Wow.
and they didn't mean that was not their intention. That was
Yes.
not their
Oh, yeah.
goal.
I'm sure. I'm sure it
But that
wasn't their intention.
but that's what comes out of it. There's an old saying. It says, "Keep me honest."
Yeah.
And that's a way of wording it. But
Mhm.
welcome criticism. Don't ever say, "Oh, I can't ever be a leader because I don't wanna be criticized." You should
Right.
welcome that criticism, and again, it doesn't cost a dime.
Right. Oh, that's very, very interesting because, that can be so defeating sometimes if you're, that you're hearing these things and your feelings get hurt or you're thinking, oh, should I just give up or, whatever. But yeah, just to make you stronger and really probably see what the insight of what they're saying, thinking, oh, did you? Yeah, uh, that was better thought out than I could have said it. Yeah, it's
I
kind
wish
of,
I had more criticism in the early years 'cause
yeah.
and it took me a while to figure that out. I didn't know that from day one,
Wow.
that criticism is something that, you should ask for. When
Yes.
in the proverbial thing when you're trying a new dress, "Honey,
Yeah.
what do you think? Okay,
Yeah.
do you like
Yeah.
my new dress?" And there've been times my husband said, "I don't like that at all." But
Mhm.
but one of the but now I know what he likes and what he doesn't like, so
Yes, exactly. Now that we know, and then return it right away, so that's okay. Don't wear it for 20 years, and all of a sudden he goes, "Oh, I've always hated that dress." So, yeah, better job that write it first. Well, I'm sure that, you were facing your own, ways to be motivated. How did you stay motivated with some of the setbacks? And why don't you tell us some of the setbacks that occurred as well? Because there has to be some setbacks. And here you were kind of gung ho. And I'm sure there's a lot of people that were just angry and they would see some sort of solution or have, okay, here's a place I can blame everybody on, instead of, really to see what really was the problem. And how did you face, some of that? And did you have all of those self doubts yourself, or, what did you face?
Well, like any organization, not everything worked. I had huge failures, and one of them, at least one of them, is in the book. Like all publishers, my publisher wanted me to reduce my manuscript by about 10%, so
Oh,
something
that's so
had to
hard.
go.
Yeah.
But one of the what I thought was the greatest failure of all ended
Mhm.
up being the best thing that could have happened, because even in failure, you learn.
Yes.
I mean, I hate to sound, teachy and,
Mhm.
like
Yeah.
we've heard that all before, but you learn new skills when you work on a project or try to get something done. You learn new skills, new ways of doing things, new ways of seeing things, new knowledge,
Right.
and in the process of working to put the breach sites on the National Register with the Park Service, for
Mhm.
those of you that are not familiar with that, that would be like, the, uh the military people with the Ray-Bans and the hats
Yes. Yes.
that patrol these national historic sites like
Mhm.
Mount Rushmore. Uh,
Mhm.
we were looking to get the breach site of New Orleans on the National Register, and we worked a year on that,
Wow.
a year. It's
Wow.
very, very difficult to
Mhm.
get something put on the National Register. It's always been
Mhm.
difficult, even more so now. But So after working for a year, it was blocked by the Army Corps of Engineers. The Army Corps did not want the breach sites on the National Register. And I discussed the details in the book, and it's too much to get into right now. But at the time, I was naturally devastated and disappointed and deflated, and felt like, I work a year on something, and now this. But but just a week or so after that moment where we found out we'd failed, I found out that, the key thing we needed to do in order to change the whole narrative and get the truth out about who flooded New Orleans and why. And if I had not worked on that project for a year, it wouldn't have been possible. It would not have been possible. I wouldn't have had the skills I needed. I wouldn't have had the research skills I need. I wouldn't have had the writing skills I needed. And I also wouldn't have had the confidence to do it had it not
Wow.
been for that failed project. So even in failure, there's
Mm.
something to be learned. There's and not just attitude. I mean, real usable skills that you've learned, even if what you were trying to do was a failure. So there's no such thing as a true failure.
Oh, that is so cool. I mean, that has to be such a, it's so discouraging when stuff just doesn't happen and doesn't go right. You just, there's a lot of people that would just say, "Okay, that's it. I'm quitting. It's done.
Mhm.
I'm done. I'm done." But you didn't. You kind of kept on, and you said just a week after that, just
Mm.
having this
Shortly after. Mhm.
or shortly after, I don't know what I wrote down, but, yeah, just very, very shortly that all of a sudden there is this, huge eye opener that you were able to move on, and that's so encouraging. So that's one of the ways of just really staying motivated. That would give you a nice little push of just saying, "Okay, okay, I can go another day, I can go another week, I can go even another year." So, because that has to be, eh, you had to face some of those self-doubts, going along. Share a couple of those or
Oh my gosh. Sure. One of the I act there was actually a period where I cried myself to sleep every night for 2 weeks.
oh,
And
wow.
that was it's related to the punchline, the what do you call it, the climax of my book. So I'm not going to tell too much here. But I thought I'd let these supporters of levees.org down, uh,
Mhm.
because of a decision that I had made.
Yes.
'Cause I don't wanna tell too much here because I don't wanna spill the bean, but I
Yeah.
made a decision, I made a judgment call against the advice of my advisors,
Yeah.
okay? Feeling that I knew what was best. Turned up I didn't. Oh, I thought I didn't. I thought
Uh,
I didn't, okay. I
yes.
actually ended up prevailing.
Okay.
But before I knew that my decision was right, there was a 2-week period there where I realized I should have listened. I should have listened to Doctor Rogers. I should have
Mhm.
listened to HJ. They
Mhm.
encouraged me to do this. I said, "No, we're gonna do it this way," and I was wrong. And I felt I'd let them down. I felt I let my supporters down. And, for 2 weeks, I cried myself to sleep every night. But during those weeks, just to get myself through the day, I threw myself into helping my son move from his one apartment to another apartment, or helping my
Mhm.
daughter with the project that she was working on, just to get myself out of me, 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 me,
Right.
me. I was upset at myself.
Mhm.
Well, fortunately, I got an email, after the end of that 2 weeks, turned up I was right. The decision I made
Mm.
was the right one,
Oh my
and I
gosh.
hope some of you are interested in getting the book and reading it because it,
Yes. We'll
has
put
a
the link.
very happy ending. So happy that I still can't quite believe it to this day that things went as well as they did. But I gotta give you a big but here. If I'd have given up years ago, I never would have made it to this success, which was
Yeah.
achieved in 2015. That was 10 years ago. So I started
Wow.
this work 20 years ago. It was 10 years ago that we achieved that major success that I'm alluding to right here in this podcast. But we've done other stuff since then, so there's plenty more to talk about.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. That's very exciting. Yes, we'll make sure all of your links are in the show notes, and also there'll be an article that comes around because I usually like to do some takeaways, especially as it relates to those at mid-career, halftime of life. And you have such a good story, and taking the risk and doing something like this. My goodness, how many people would do that? So, now, what advice you've given some advice already on people that are looking to maybe individuals looking to maybe mobilize their communities for change. I mean, there's so many different ways. Like I was just reading in one of our city their magazines how they're looking for people to be on these different committees, and some of these, I am just not a meeting person. I was president of a nonprofit and on a board for 4 years. I thought that's it. I'm a creative. I'm an artist. So, and a producer. So, but how would you, what advice would you give individuals if they did want to mobilize, if there were things that they see that need changed in their communities, how would they start even, or, what sort of advice, first steps, baby steps?
Sure. So I'm going to give an example. There's a couple here in a suburban area of
Mm-hmm.
Louisiana, not rural, suburban,
Mm-hmm.
and they have purple martin nests for a migrating. It's a migrating songbird. They
Mm-hmm.
fly from Brazil to America, and they put up nest boxes every year, and then they take them down. So they've been doing this for 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
Well, one neighbor, complained, and is that they're actually being taken to court,
Oh gosh.
for just for the crime of putting up bird nests for these purple martin. He's
Mm.
complaining it's a nuisance, that the birds are a nuisance. Well, when I saw this, criminal charges.
Oh my
When I
gosh.
saw this, I said, "I've gotta do something. I've gotta do this retired couple doesn't
Mm.
know what to do and
Yeah.
needs help." So I created a community to support them.
Oh.
And it took me, I mean, with my mobilization skills, what that meant, well, it was easy for me is what I'm trying to say.
Hmm. Yeah.
But really anyone can do this. The first thing I did is I educated myself on the facts of the case, okay?
Hmm.
And now wasn't rocket science. It's a migrating songbird
Yeah.
that that had actually dependent on humans.
Ah,
Over
okay.
the course of a couple of centuries, it's
Hmm.
almost 100% dependent on humans for their
Hmm.
journey.
Okay.
This purple martin. So,
Mhm.
educated myself on the details. Okay, and I realized, what do we want? We want
Yeah.
the mayor to drop the case. Lock the elderly couple and a neighbor in a room and make them figure it out is a
Yeah.
better solution. But criminal charges.
Yeah.
But by the time I got involved, the city of Harahan had already spent $20,000 of taxpayer money going after
Oh.
this elderly couple. So I just
Oh
thought
gosh.
this is just wrong. So I created a community for
Hmm.
them, and the last thing I did is I created what's called a call to action, which is
Hmm.
simply creating some sort of tool where anybody, you, me, anybody could, with the click of a mouse, just
Hmm.
shoot off a letter to the mayor's inbox saying, "Please drop this case. There must be other ways to deal with this situation." And so
Right.
develop a community of
Hmm.
support for the
Hmm.
elderly couple. And so it took, it was not difficult to do. And now there's on Facebook, there's the Facebook page, about 250 people in
Hmm.
support. There's another feature called Rally Starter. Excellent platform, free. All of these things are
Hmm.
free, by the way. Don't
Yes.
cost a
Hmm.
dime. And on that, about 600 people have sent letters off to the mayor.
Hmm.
Facebook, about 300 people. And then also, how else did I? Oh, Nextdoor
Oh,
is a
yes.
platform
Familiar with that. Yes. Yeah.
which is very, very active, and so I posted this to Nextdoor, and right now there's about 1,000 people
Mhm.
supporting this
Oh,
couple, and so that now they're not alone. And
that's so sweet. That is so sweet.
it's
Yeah.
been actually fun for me to utilize my mobilization skills to create
Yeah.
this community. But that's what you do. You create a community of support, and there's now 1,000 people supporting this elderly couple, but doesn't even have to be 1,000. A
No.
couple of dozen is plenty.
as long as they hear from that. I mean, I love somebody. I mean, we have parrots where we are, and they are just the noisiest thing. But they go house to house, so there's not one person. But I mean, there are people that feed some of the, and you could get all of these little complaints. Oh, they feed this, or I actually know people that feed like the ducks or the geese that are flying, and so they'll kind of I would hate to clean up after them because they were swim in their pool and everything else, but they feed them, but it gives them something to do. They'll clean up after them, but all it takes is one angry little neighbor, and especially something like that. You're not telling people they can't build on this property because of something. You're not telling them they can't. All they're doing is making some little nests for these birds. So yeah, that's the way you've done this too. To the mobilization is very, very helpful because anybody can do that. Anybody can.
Anyone,
Yeah,
and the
anyone
tools are
can.
free. The
Yes.
tools are
Yeah.
free. Rally Start is free. Facebook
Yeah.
is free.
Right. Hmm.
Next Door is free.
Yes.
And
Yes.
then once the community gets to be in that many thousands,
Yes.
then it starts costing money. But
Yes.
by the
Yeah.
time it gets that big,
Yeah.
your cause is done
You
with.
made your point.
I
Hmm.
expect the point's been made, and
Yeah.
hopefully the mayor will drop the case. But while we
Yeah.
speak, it's still ongoing. That there may be a trial in the next few weeks, but I hope not. Fingers crossed. I really think the mayor's gonna drop the case.
Isn't that something? I mean, that's it's just it can be stuff can be
Uh,
so ridiculous. I mean, just so ridiculous. Anyway, so as we kind of look at a couple more little questions, you've had some challenges that actually you've shared of getting onto or working with these Army Corps of engineers. Were there anything else that you want to share with our audience and how you overcame them? Some of the challenges that you personally went through.
Sure. The I like to call, no matter who it is you're trying to deal with, either a homeowners association or a next door neighbor that's kind of nuts,
Hmm.
just
Yeah.
seems to be a little crazy, or the Army Corps of Engineers of America, or no matter who it is, Walmart, no
Hmm.
matter who it is, they're I call them the big guys,
Yes.
that are stopping you
Mhm.
from doing what you think is right, okay?
Right.
Well, there's the funny thing about these big guys, they're
Mhm.
no different than that bully in the 3rd grade playground.
Yeah. Yeah.
No different from that bully. So let's talk about this for a moment. Now,
Mhm.
how Ms. Rosen, what do you mean they're the same as a bully? And what do you mean? Well, first of all, what are they? They're big.
Mhm.
Doesn't mean they're smarter.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, that's
Eh,
true.
all it means is they're bigger. So what?
Mhm.
And odds are, I would bet 99% you are smarter than they are. Okay, so
Mm.
they're big. But what
Mhm.
happens when you're big? You get arrogant.
Mm.
You think that because you're big,
Mhm.
like
Right.
Walmart and
Right.
Exxon, and
Right.
because you're big, that you're unstoppable and that you can
Mhm.
break the law, or
Mhm.
you can be brutal and ugly and that you'll get away with it. Nope.
Mhm.
Nope. No, you can't get away with it.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
because you're big, you'll make a big mistake.
Big.
And I'll give you an example. So the Army Corps of Engineers was harassing me online. Me, my family, my 15-year-old son, and my levee.org supporters was harassing me online. And one of the most delicious moments of my activist career was when I discovered, using back-end tools available to any amateur, I discovered using IP addresses. And for
Mhm.
your listeners that don't know what an IP address is, it's the equivalent of a caller ID on a phone for a
Right.
computer.
Uh-huh.
A phone has a phone number. A
Mhm.
computer has an IP address. And
Mhm.
using IP addresses, I was able to figure out that it was the Army Corps of Engineers sitting at their computers harassing me online. And I had the data. I had it in black and white. And
Wow.
I sent this off to the news,
Mhm. Wow.
to the TV channels in New
Mhm.
Orleans. And so what happened is the Army Corps of Engineers was caught harassing me.
Wow.
The
Wow.
I c the damage that did to the Army
Wow.
Corps' goodwill and their public image
Mhm.
was incalculable. Here we are 18 years later, most everyone in the city remembers that. So,
Wow,
so
interesting.
that was an example how the big guys, when they make a mistake, make a really, really big
Really
mistake.
big mistake. And that you
Okay?
were not going to give up. I've heard so much from people go, "Oh, I'm just not good at tech." Figure it out.
You figure
Now
it out.
there's AI tools. All you have to do is ask, Grok, Chappy, GPT. All you have to do is that. Where do I find this information? And you will find it. So that is, you can usually discover that. So good for you. And I mean, it doesn't matter who it is. If they're going to be a big bully, and I always think of those cartoons, you have the big guy going, he's just going to lobs around, you know, he thinks he's so tough, but they do end up getting, in a lot of the cartoons too, they end up getting outsmarted. So it just, use your brain, be calm when you're dealing with a bully, and because I've had some legal issues, around me, not me personally, but around where I've seen how important this is. When you're dealing with bullies, it's important to be calm, have your thoughts together, and just be systematic. Be very organized, calm, and systematic. And usually that it kind of diffuses them a bit. First of all, they don't know what to do because now all they want you to do is yell back. So that's a different response. Yeah.
They don't expect you
No,
to fight back, and when you
no.
do, they're initially shocked and can't
Especially in a
believe it.
calm way that they got all of a
Mhm.
sudden you figured them out. Here it is. Here's the facts. Here's the data. I really like that. Using the data, using the facts instead of using a, angry just retort. So yeah,
Mhm.
that's very, very good. So, well, if you could do all of this again, I'm sure you probably look back and go, "Oh, I made that mistake, that mistake." But a lot of your failures, as you've shared, turned out better because of what you learned through them. I just think that's such a valuable principle and the tenacity that it took to keep going. So kudos to you. But what would you have done differently? And I also want to hear like what's next besides helping this neighbor with the birds. So
So, what would I have done differently in those early years?
Mm.
And I want to remind your listeners, these are the years that I was most unsure of myself because I didn't
Yes.
know everything yet.
Yeah.
I do
Yeah.
now. At least I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure I do now.
Hmm.
But there's very little I don't know now. But then there were so many unknowns. There were so many things I didn't understand. Um, and and if I could do it all over again, I would have been louder. I would have talked
Mm.
louder, and I would
Mm.
have talked longer.
Okay.
I
Oh,
was
okay.
I was a little too timid and a little
Oh.
too unsure because
Hmm.
I was being told at that time, "Oh, the truth will come out later. I can't tell you now, but it'll all come out later. You'll see. You'll see
Uh,
that you're wrong."
uh,
Well, now I know that's
mhm.
what the big guys say to you to shut you up,
Mm. Yeah.
to
Yeah.
scare you and frighten you and shut you up.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and they don't do it. They didn't come to me in the form of the Army Corps. They sent
Mhm.
other people
Of course.
disguised
Of course.
as helping me when they weren't helping me at all.
Mhm.
They were
Mhm.
working for and I discussed that in my book. So I would have just taught louder and longer. Louder and longer. That's the only thing I would have done differently. As
Yeah.
for what I'm doing now, something I'm really excited about. I realized only about 2 or 3 years ago. You would think that, especially in light of the Titanic
Mhm.
and in light of this breach
Mhm.
disaster in
Mhm.
New Orleans, you would think that every engineering student in these engineering schools, 200 plus engineering schools, you would
Mhm.
think that being taught about disasters and lessons learned was routine.
Uh-huh.
You would think every student would
Would
have
know.
had
Uh-huh.
this sort of training
Mhm.
before graduation. They are not.
Wow.
They are not. If a
Mm.
student gets any instruction on failures, it's only because their teacher happened to be interested in a particular failure and like to talk about it. So
Wow. Wow.
Levee.org's current mission is making
Mhm.
certain that every student studying for his bachelor's
Mhm.
in engineering receives instruction and on lessons learned. Excuse me. I'm going to say that all over
Mhm.
again. Our mission is we want to make sure that every student studying for his engineering degree, his bachelor's in
Mhm.
engineering, receives instruction on failures and lessons learned. And if a
Ah,
school does not provide that instruction, the school can't be accredited.
wow. That's a huge mission.
Mhm.
So,
But
yeah.
it's not a sprint, it's a marathon.
Yes,
It's a
yes.
marathon. It's gonna
Oh, that's
take
wonderful.
dealing with not individually all 200 schools. What it's gonna take is dealing with the accrediting body called
Yes,
ABET,
yes,
ABET. So
yes,
that's our
yes,
current thing, and right now, what we've been doing the past couple of years is we have been amassing support from the citizen at large, like you and me,
yes. Mm-hmm.
and we've also been amassing support from NGOs and organizations and
Right.
and governments and
Mm.
all kinds of organizations nationwide, broad and diverse, in support of this. And I have not yet found anyone that's against it.
Cool. I think the education and knowing our history, you got to know your history, otherwise you will repeat it. I mean, that is just well known. People try to erase it. Yeah, can't erase it. You gotta deal with it, see what the failures were, see what happened, the disasters, and go from there. That's very, very important. In our whole history of our United States, I think that's important as well. So, well, this has been a pleasure. Can you just share? This will all be in the show notes, of course. But I like my guests to share where to reach you, and just the name of your book and all of that.
The name of the book is Words Whispered in Water. In 2025, my publisher did a special anniversary edition,
Hmm.
and that's available on Amazon. And if anybody wants to know about my work with levees.org or about my podcast, or anything else about about the engineering failure education campaign,
Hmm.
just it's all available from one place. My name, SandyRosenthal.net.
Wonderful, wonderful. So, thank you so very much. I will have all of that information in the show notes, and so people will be able to contact you directly. And thank you for sharing your wonderful, inspiring story. And hopefully, that listeners who are at mid career, halftime of life, have given you some ideas, some inspiration. I'm always inspired by many of our guests, and that all of them has a little bit different stories. And but it's fun to learn the principles and how important it is to take those risks, to not just sit. You saw something that needed done and you took action. You were willing to fail. That's a big part of it as well. You can't be afraid to do that. So, but it's hard. I mean,
And be willing to accept criticism, to welcome
yeah,
criticism.
to welcome criticism. That was a great takeaway. So, well, thank you again, Sandy, for being with us today. Just a wonderful interview. And thank you all who are listening all the way through. I appreciate you hanging on and hearing this amazing story, and also inspiring. Hopefully, you feel inspired as you keep going in your life and you're answering what's next. Thanks again, Sandy, for being with us. And thank you again, everyone else. And I'll see you next time. So, bye bye for now. Thanks so much for spending time with me today. I love bringing you insights to help you maximize your skills, resources, and experience at mid-career and beyond, so that you can make your next chapter your most impactful and purposeful yet. I'm Deborah Johnson, and I can't wait to be with you again next time on the Power of After show.